Prawn here, and the following video is a series of a load of different tips that I've discovered for Scum for things that you might not have realised, like how to play a musical instrument or what you can do with a tractor. That's pretty exciting. But also a whole load of other tips and interesting things that will make your life a little bit easier, because Scum isn't the most obvious in terms of the user interface. One of the things I discovered is the compass. Now, the compass is very handy for navigating the map. If you press your right mouse button, hold it down, you have this zoomed effect. And if you're lucky, you'll see a compass at the top of the screen. Now, this starts out with just north on it, but when you get a bit more advanced, you'll see north, south, east, and west. The map itself has north at the top and south at the bottom, so you can use this to navigate between squares. Now, this is very handy whether you're on the water or on land, and you can see I can easily just turn in the right direction. You can find lootable compasses on the map that when you equip them will give you an even better compass that you can use. So you can see I've got this military compass, and now when I zoom, I also get numbers on the direction as well, so you can get a more accurate line on where you're going or calling things out. Now, the compass is influenced by the survival skill. So if you raise this by crafting items, eventually your survival skill will go up, and you can see my level is medium for survival, and that's why my compass shows north, south, east, and west. So just work on that skill. Did you know that you can bury chests? So if you've got a chest and a spade, you can bury your chests and hide them so enemies can't steal them as easily. Now, you will need a spade for this, so you're going to need to find yourself a spade. And you're also going to need to make sure it's on your person, so in your hands. When it's in your hands, you'll see you have the option to bury. Obviously, you're going to need that chest in a location where you can actually bury it, though. You can't bury it on a wooden floor, as I'm apparently trying to do here inside my base. So first of all, select the option to pick it up in your hands by pressing and holding F on the box until you get that extra menu. Take in the hands, then go outside and find somewhere suitable to bury it. Then with the spade equipped, you should then have the option to bury it, and you have to go through this process. A bit arduous, but it works. Another thing that I've discovered, which is really handy, is when you cut down a tree, you obviously get logs from it. But did you know if you've got a big backpack, like this massive hiking backpack, you can actually put a log in that, and then you can carry one in your hands as well. This is a great way to transport logs around, because logs are pretty heavy and you do need a lot of them for your base. Notice that I've also rotated the log, so hold control and then roll the mouse wheel to rotate things in your bag. But you can't fit two in there, sadly, because the maximum weight capacity of this bag is 60 and 2 logs would be 75 kilos, so that's impossible to do. But this does mean you can carry one in your shoulder and one in your bag, which then makes it much easier to get them back to the base, assuming you're strong enough to be able to do this, and then you can use them for crafting the various things. If you find a chainsaw, you can use that to chop down trees and optimize things. So press F when you've got the chainsaw equipped and keep pressing it, and hopefully it will eventually start. Obviously, it's not easy to find chainsaws, and you do need to make sure they're fueled in order to do this, and they're also quite loud. But they are pretty effective at cutting down trees. You can see my friend doing it here. So if you go up to a tree and then press F when you've got the chainsaw equipped and turned on, you'll then get the option to cut the tree down, and it will fall down into logs. And then if you go up to the logs and press and hold F on those, you can then cut the logs into planks. The tree is pretty interesting in this way, because if you cut the tree branch bundle, you'll also get extra things out of it that way as well. So things can be cut down and then cut down again in various ways. You can check the ammunition on weapons, including the chainsaw, by pressing Shift and holding R. This will let you have a look and see how much fuel you've got on the chainsaw, which you can see is now showing as 43% full. And you can do the same on guns as well. So if you find a gun in the world, you can Shift R on it and it'll let you know how many bullets are on it. And this is handy for just making sure you know how much ammunition you've got. Like I can see here, my shotgun's got 6 shots in it, for example. Cigarettes can be used to help with your endurance recovery. So if you find a cigarette packet, right click on it, take cigarette out, then equip that cigarette, and then light it with a lighter or matches, and then it will help with that endurance, but it will negatively impact your health if you smoke too many of them, so watch out for that. When it comes to cooking food, if you find yourself a cookbook in the world, like this rice cookbook, when you've got that equipped, if you go up to a fire, you will then see the ability on the cooking menu to access a new bit that includes different rice recipes. So you can see that I now know how to do that, which is pretty cool. Another thing that's really cool is paddleboards. So if you go into a stretch of beach and keep walking along, eventually you might get lucky and find a paddleboard. Now, the paddleboard requires a paddle in order to use it. So if you go into the crafting menu and search for paddle, you'll see that in order to craft it, you need a long stick, one plank, one bolt, and a cutting implement. This means obviously you need an axe because you've got to chop down a tree and then turn a log into a plank, and you also need to find some bolts somewhere, which you can get from metal and a crafting machine. But if you do that, you can then get yourself a pretty standard paddle. Now, this is an improvised paddle, which as you see is fairly short. Doesn't make a great weapon, but what it does do is allow you to use the paddleboard to get around. You'll notice that you're on your knees when paddling like this, and it's not the fastest, but you are pretty safe out here because the zombies aren't in the water, for example. If you're lucky, you might find a longer paddle. I found this one on an island in the middle of the ocean, and this basically allows you to then stand up and paddle, which is then a bit faster, so you can get around a bit more. Although the waves can have a negative impact on your paddling and it can take longer to get about, but it's easier than being on land, having to dodge all the dangers of that. You can craft locks, and you can make locks using padlocks. So if you go into the crafting menu and search for lock, you'll find that here you can see there's 3 different kinds of locks. And the basic one requires 7 padlocks and 25 uses of a toolbox. Then you can get a silver lock, which requires 12 padlocks, and then the better lock than that, which requires even more. So it's worth collecting padlocks as you go around. Once you've got a lock crafted, you can use it to lock doors. And if you upgrade the doors, you can put more locks on them. So you can see this door's got 2 locks on it. But when I upgrade it, it's now got the ability to have 3. You can tell that because you've still got a little locked sign there next to the 2 locks that I put on it, but it's not grayed out anymore, and you can just drag an extra lock onto that, and you can have 3 locks on the door, making it better and harder for people to break into. Now, you can also put locks on chests. So you can see here I've got an iron lock, and I'm trying to put it on the chest here. If you right-click on the chest, you'll see there's no option to add a lock to it. What you have to do instead is to grab the lock and drag it over the chest, and then you'll get a little action menu appear where it says lock. So you can click lock on that, and then you apply the lock to the chest. So now my door is locked and my chest is locked, and that's very handy. If you're like me, you probably died quite a few times in this game, especially when you first start out. When you haven't got very good gear, you'll just run into encounters you weren't expecting, like a room full of baddies with guns, and then just get murdered. And every time you die, you end up losing money. And if you lose enough money, your character will then reset and you'll have to start again from scratch, losing all your skills and everything else. This is pretty frustrating, so you obviously want to avoid dying as much as you can because you're just going to keep racking up debt as you do. And when you obviously racked up enough debt, then it's a bigger problem. But there is a counter to this that's worth knowing, or at least something you keep in mind while going through it. So you will have noticed when you start playing the game that you get a bank card on your person. You can see you've got a starter bank card here. Now, the bank card can be used to deposit and withdraw money. It also has other uses, including buying fuel, but for the moment we're sticking to basically paying off your debt as the important thing to know here. So make sure you hold on to this bank card. When you find some cash, what you then want to do is head over to the ATMs that you can find around in various places, click on your card, and then you have the option to deposit money. So you can see I've got $88 here to deposit, and that takes my minus account balance down to 1,744. So I'm still in debt by quite a way. But if you go over 2,000 and something, you'll end up having your character reset completely. Now, you can find cash sometimes on zombies. So if you kill zombies, you might find cash on them, which I have done a few times. And also in mattresses, I've found cash as well. So watch out for that. And basically just keep going back to the machine and paying it in. Now, if you lose your card, you can pay a little bit of money to renew it. So you can renew a new card if you've completely lost it. But if you've died and you can manage to get your card back, that's a better way of doing it. Take care not to just eat everything that you find in the world. I found this cooking pot here and just went ahead and ate what was in it, or drunk what was in it. And I didn't check properly because it was dirty water that immediately made me sick. And obviously this has a negative effect on your metabolism. So make sure you use the check icon to check water and other things before you eat or drink them. You can accidentally sometimes drink when you didn't even mean to. I was trying to search this chest and accidentally started drinking ocean water, which is obviously not good for you, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. But one of the things you can do to counter this is open the action menu by pressing and holding tab and then going to this section to then vomit. So you can then vomit the water back up, and this applies to other things that you might have eaten that weren't good for you. You can try and puke them out and get rid of them, which can be beneficial. Now, if you find some really good gear, I had this particularly good armor that I'd found, take care, because you might do what I've just done and fall into the water, and then all my gear got wet and suddenly it was very, very heavy. I didn't really realise how much danger I was in, but in the bottom left icon of the screen you can see that suddenly there is a red symbol down here which is letting us know that I'm now overburdened. I wasn't before, but when I hit the water all my clothes got wet and they got so heavy that I then couldn't swim anymore. Now I tried to drop my bag, which as you can see is full of stuff, in order to be able to swim back up. But doing that apparently made no difference because I was still overweight. Although I wasn't overburdened anymore, I couldn't get out of the ground and I ended up drowning here, and my friend had to go and rescue all my gear. So just take care. You might think, oh, I've got some really good armor and a nice helmet and whatever else, but you might end up dying if you're not careful. Now, gear weight has some interesting implications because if it's really heavy, it can actually help, but you can get an idea of what your gear weight is by going into the metabolism section. You can see from here that I'm currently got 2740 in terms of kilogram weight. But if you've got very heavy gear on, as I have here, you'll see that it obviously exhausts you more. Your stamina is not as good. I'm at 39 of 40 kilos here. I'm carrying a load of weight with me. I keep running out of stamina and having to lay down to rest. But it does have a benefit because it seems to be putting up my strength and making me stronger as I do it. Did you realise that garlic has a benefit in that it gives you antibiotics? So actually eating garlic has the benefit of improving your immune system. So get to munching on garlic because it's not good just for filling you up in terms of digestion, but it'll also help make you healthy as well. You can also find antibiotics out in the world. There are some hospital buildings, for example, that you can find antibiotics in. And if you look in the metabolism section, you'll find what the benefits are here. But you can see I've got an extremely high immune system currently because of what I've taken. So I've taken antibiotics, vitamins, and potassium as well. So really just in a healthy way there. Now, if you end up getting injured and you happen to have found an emergency bandage, I want to show you how to use it because it's not immediately obvious. So you'll see standard, obviously you apply bandages to your wounds by using rags. But with an emergency bandage, you first have to take out the bandage, go over to the health section, click on the bleed, click on the bandage, and then click to treat it and apply that. Now, you can get drunk in the game and also take psychedelics, as I showed in my previous tips video, but there are some negative impacts of doing so. So drunkenness, for example, has a reduction on your intelligence. So you can see getting too drunk reduces your intelligence. There's lots of interesting effects the game does like this. As I said earlier, smoking, for example, too much will give you nicotine poisoning, which then gives you the jitters and nausea and other impacts. So some of these things have benefits and some of them obviously have negative impacts as well. So you have to watch out for those. It's pretty interesting to see what happens with these. Did you know that you can grab stuff from the Vicinity? So if you go to the inventory section, I'd recommend hitting tab regularly when you're looting and just looking because you might find there's stuff on the floor nearby. This is handy in other ways. So if you're trying to move an item that you've crafted, like this chest that I'm trying to move, you can see it went down in the wrong place. But if I grab on it from the Vicinity section here, you can actually move it around like that. So you can see that I can pick it up by just selecting it in that area and then dragging it around. You can then turn it with the mouse wheel so you can adjust its position and then set it down again in a position you're happy with. This is much easier than trying to work out how to do it when you've picked up an item and are just trying to drop it. I had real trouble with this fire grate initially, for example, that I was trying to put on top of the fire. It wasn't obvious how to put it down. I had the grill here, I'm trying to just drop it. It wouldn't go on top of the fire no matter what I tried. It's very unintuitive, and that seems to be the case with a lot of things in this game. It's not logical. Eventually I got it to drop by pure luck, but the easier thing to do is actually to move things as I just showed you with that crate instead. So if you actually use your inventory system and the Vicinity marker, you can more logically move them around. So you'll see here that I'm trying to put this cooking pot onto the fire grill, for example. So what I've found is that you can actually just drag it onto there. So you can just drag it from your inventory onto the grill in a much easier way and then just put it down there like that. and then you can fuel the fire and light the fire and cook any dirty water that's in there and make it clean. Nighttime can be a pain in the Scum, but if you're lucky, you might find yourself a headlamp. Now, headlamps can be equipped and then powered, and I used a smartphone battery on this one. So if you find a smartphone battery, you can put it inside the headlamp. You can then insert it into that. Then you can right-click to turn it on, and then you can right-click again to decrease the intensity or increase it. So you can choose whether it's bright or dim. And this is obviously beneficial if you're trying to be a bit more stealthy and sneak around. Bedrolls are also handy if you find those. Now, bedrolls are quick. They go on your shoulder, so they don't go in your bag. And then you can use them, deploy them, and then basically lay on them, and they'll give you a bonus in terms of the reduction in fatigue. So they're actually beneficial to lay on. So if you put them in your hands, you can chuck them on the floor, as with other things, as I've shown you in that really clumsy way. But more effectively, you can lay them down properly by dragging them and then using the space there to just put them down properly. So what I'm doing here, for example, is I'm getting the bedroll in my hands, and then I'm trying to find a position to put it down on the floor, and then you just lay down and rest on it. So if you just tap F on it, you'll then lay down automatically on it. Now you can lay down from the actions menu, and that will then help with recovery as standard, help you recover from exhaustion, or if you find a bed. But the bedroll can be helpful because you can use this to give you an extra boost in recovery. You can see that resting is giving me -24 in terms of the exhaustion level, so it really helps with recovery, and this helps you regenerate health as well, which is also important. So on the top of this roof, I missed a gap, fell through, badly injured myself, was down to 34% health. I was being shot at by a robot. The situation wasn't good, but what I did was I deployed my bedroll, and then I just lay down on it after I'd bandaged my wounds, obviously, and then started to heal slowly from that. So you can see the health starting to go back up. You just have to lay there for a while, hopefully somewhere sneaky, and then eventually you'll start to heal. It takes a bit of time to do this. It is important, however, that your wounds are in the recovery section, so you need to make sure they're bandaged first of all. So if you've got bleeds, they have to be recovered first before you'll start to heal. But eventually, once they're in that state, you should find that your health slowly ticks up. Now, you can lay down on a bed, or you can lay down on the floor, or you can lay down on a bedroll, but you can also just sit. So if you find a comfortable seat like a sofa or an armchair, you can sit there and just rest for a while. This will help not only recover from exhaustion, but will also help tick your health up as well. So these are the ways to heal if you weren't aware. Basically making sure you're just resting with your character, but also any injuries that you've got have been treated. So, for example, by bandaging. If you find cans of food, you can open them and eat from them. But sometimes when you click on it, it says open is grayed out because it's not working. The reason for this is you need to have a knife equipped. So the knife needs to be in your hands, and then you can see that I can now open this can of tuna and eat it. It's not obvious, but that's the way the game works. Sometimes it's a bit illogical. Now, if you find an instrument, you can play that instrument, but it's a bit convoluted in how you do it, so it's worth knowing this because it can be fun. So we found a banjo, and the way to access the ability to play the banjo is, first of all, you have to have it equipped, obviously. Then you have to go to the actions menu, and then the play instrument section. And then from there, you need to know what the button combination is to play the instrument. So if you go into the options and then the controls section and then scroll through, eventually you'll find the instruments section. And from there, you can see the different notes that you can play and the key combos for that. So playing a C note, for example, requires you to press Z. D is U, E is I. So it's not very logical, but that's how you would do it. Now, you can take parts off of vehicles when you find them. This is useful for building a vehicle if you want to use that vehicle. Just go up to a vehicle and press and hold F on one of the parts of it, and you'll then be able to remove it. But if you want to modify a vehicle or remove the wheels, what you want to do is find a jack. So if you're lucky, you'll find a car jack. If you put that in your hands and go up to a vehicle, you then get the option when you press and hold F on it to service it. And from there, you can see it's now highlighted all the different parts that can be put on or taken off. I'm taking off the wheels off of this vehicle so I can take them home with me and try to use them on a different vehicle. If you collect parts, then theoretically you can save up and get yourself a working vehicle. So I'm taking 2 wheels here, and because my bag is huge, I can actually fit both of those in there and still not be overweight and still have room for other things. which is pretty neat. And then don't forget to take the jack back once you've finished. So you have to end service and then put that back in your bag so you don't leave it behind. Now, unfortunately, putting the vehicle jack on this tractor, I couldn't then put the car wheels on the tractor, which is a shame because, as you'll see, the tractor is awesome. It's an awesome vehicle, potentially. I had great fun driving around in this thing when I did find one that had fuel. You can use it to run over the zombies, and you can also get in the back in that rear cage. But also the tractor has masses of storage. So the rear cage has a whole load of storage space in there, and the tractor itself does as well. So this is a vehicle worth repairing, as you can see here. So I went and I looted this tractor, or at least I thought I was looting it. I got in the back of it, and then I realized that you can get in the front and then just drive it around. I was very lucky to find one in full working condition like this, though. So it's probably going to be tricky to repair that tractor, but it's worth knowing that you can take different parts off, take them back to your base, hold on to them until you find a vehicle that you can maybe repair. Now, another thing that wasn't obvious to me is chests initially. So what I did when trying to store things was I dragged stuff into the chest and tried to put it in there in a neat way, trying to make everything really neat. But what you can do instead is you can just drag it onto the chest icon in the Vicinity section. So you can just drag it onto the chest and then it'll automatically put it in there for you, stacking things in a neat way. So this is actually a much easier way of optimizing your storage. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can also stack items when you're out in the world. So you can see here that I'm dragging bolts on top of each other. So if you find your storage is getting full up when you have various different clothing items, you can just stack bolts. Now, not everything is stackable, but some things are. Bolts, for example, are. Nails are as well. Arrows can be stacked too. So you can stack all these things, save a bit more space, optimize, and obviously be able to carry more. When you are stacking these, you'll see you can have groups of 10. So I've got 10 nails there, then I can create another stack. So I can just keep adding to that, and then we can add more and more of those. You might also find that you find a box of nails or a box of bolts. Now, with the boxes, you can keep them in there and then just take them out when you need to. Right-click on the box and click Take Out Bolts, for example. I can then use them on the improvised workbench that I'm trying to craft. You can see I need 14 bolts for that. So I just take out an additional one. Now that's full of bolts and it's ready for the rest of the things. If you've emptied a water bottle because you've drunk from it, you can use it in other ways. So if you look at your inventory and you find that you've got an empty bottle, what you can do is you can go to the crafting section and then go to this bit, which is currently craftable, and you'll see that you can make a water bottle rain collector. This can be done with cans as well. Craft this, put it outside your base, and when it rains, you'll get water. If you find milk cartons, it's worth drinking those as long as they're in good condition, because the milk will give you an additional bonus. So if you go to the metabolism section, you can see that this is actually giving us a recovery bonus from drinking milk. So it's actually beneficial to drink milk over and above water, for example. But you do have to watch out because milk is often spoiled, which would obviously be a problem, would make you ill. The other thing is that you might find smartphones and obviously smartphone batteries, as I've already shown you. If you insert the smartphone battery into a smartphone by dragging it over the smartphone, you can then turn the smartphone on and then you can use it. From here, you can gain access to quests and keep track of your quests. So this is worth doing as well. The two things are fairly easy to find, but you do just need to make sure you keep on top of the battery because you can see this is at 20%, so it's probably worth turning off afterwards. You can craft a bed in which you can plant seeds. You need to make sure you've got them in your hands, and then you'll be able to easily plant them. So you can do that by putting them in your hands and going up to the bed, or by dragging it. So you can see I've got these seeds in my pants here. If I drag them over this section, it will then put them into that point and eventually craft them. You'll come across NPCs in the world, and sometimes they're armed. This one's got a shotgun. If I use melee, I can get close enough to him to just keep hitting him, and that'll stop him from being able to shoot me. So they'll come towards you, and if you haven't got a gun, as I hadn't at this point, using melee is a good option because you can just keep beating them until they die and they won't be able to shoot back. I've shown you how to take wheels off of cars, but if you're lucky enough to find a motorbike with wheels, you can actually just push it around. So I can't get this motorbike to start. It's missing a seat and some other bits. The fuel's a bit low, but I found I could push it home. Now, this took blooming ages to do because I had to go across 4 squares of the map, but you can make it easier by going downhill with it, and then you don't use as much stamina, and you can just hide in a bush, lay down to recover some stamina, and even log off between sessions, and hopefully no one will find you and your bike. I've hidden it away pretty well there. in the middle of the countryside, and then eventually I'll be able to sort this bike out and use it, hopefully. You can repair weapons by using a gun cleaning kit. So if you're trying to repair a gun, you'll need a gun cleaning kit. By the way, the manual can be really helpful if you get stuck and you don't know how to do things. But if you have it in your hands, you can then repair the gun. So it's not obvious, again, because you might have it on your holster and not be able to repair it. Instead, you need to make sure you put it in your hands. So that's the case with a lot of things in the game. They have to be in your hands in order to work properly. And then you can do things like check the ammo or use the cleaning kit to repair the gun. You can repair other things. So to repair a knife, you're going to need a grinding stone. You have that equipped, and then you can repair the knife, so you can actually sharpen that and repair it. This logic will also work if you've got a toolbox. You'll be able to repair a sledgehammer or a crowbar, for example. If you find or craft a sewing kit, which you can get by using a needle and thread or fishing line, by the way, you can also do that with the nylon fishing line. Then you can use that to repair your clothes, which can help ensure that inventory space is at maximum. I really like this sledgehammer for melee combat. It's devastating. You can basically one-hit a lot of zombies with the sledgehammer. Even the ones that look like they've got armor on will take less hits with a sledgehammer than with other weapons. So it's great for smashing them up, but it does really slow you down. One of the things I've noticed, especially with the sledgehammer, is it really slows you down. So if you've got a weapon out in your hands, it will slow you down, you'll move slower. With the sledgehammer, you can see that's especially strong effect. So when you put it away, you can run faster. So this is beneficial. Basically, don't have your weapon out all the time, you'll move quicker. But if you want to be a bit stealthier, you can either just slow down by rolling the mouse wheel backwards or equip a weapon, and then it will help to make sure you walk slowly. Hopefully you found all these tips useful. If you did, let me know any tips that you found in the comments down below, and check out the playlist because I'm going to be doing more and more of these tips and tricks videos of Scum in the near future. And make sure you find yourself a tractor because they're amazing. This has been the Provoked Brawn. Thanks very much for watching.